Hello and welcome to the Society with Barrister Fatma Shaheen at PTB World. Considering that 3 years of PTI's rule have already passed, it is very important for us at this point in time to sit back and analyze all that they have done in their 3-year rule. In that regard, considering the very nature and the very focus of our show is about the society, we'll particularly be talking about the social impact PTI's rule has had on the common man in Pakistan. And in this regard, we'll be talking about education, we'll be talking about employment, we'll be talking about youth, we'll be talking about transgender rights and so many other things, be it the launch of the single national curriculum, be it for that matter laws which aim to empower as well as protect women, or for that matter PTI's very popular SAS program. We'll be deliberating on all these projects that PTI has successfully launched in its 3-year tenure. And to do that, let me introduce you to my first panelist here today. My first panelist with me here today is Ms. Aisha Nawaz Chaudhary, who is an MPA of the ruling party alongside being a chairperson of the Standing Committee on School Education. Assalamu alaikum Aisha and welcome to the show. And my second panelist for the show today is Faraz Saeed Saab, who is a political as well as a policy commentator alongside being a business journalist. Assalamu alaikum Faraz and welcome to the show. And my third panelist for the show today is Ms. Talat Naqvi, who is again MP of the ruling party alongside being a member of Sports Board Punjab. Assalamu alaikum Ms. Talat and welcome to the show. Aisha, I would like to start the show with you and something which I've just mentioned in my introduction as well, that one thing that your government has done is that it has worked very diligently to empower the common man. But when we talk about empowerment, I think a very important aspect in this regard and something which is very recent and must be talked about is education and the launch of the single national curriculum. So just tell us that from the time that this idea was envisioned to the time that the curriculum was launched, what were the highs and the lows of this journey?
Single national curriculum has been on the agenda of PTI from the beginning, as you have mentioned.
Right.
It is very important for Khan Sahib, and we have been talking about how opportunities are redefined for people according to the places, to the schools that they go to. And as a result of that, what happens is that not only that there's the majority of the population, especially from the rural areas, are not getting the right kind of education, but they're also not getting the right kind of opportunity.
Right.
And eventually, if you really understand it in the long-term perspective, you see the quality of people deteriorating in terms of the bureaucracy, the civil service, the army, the air force, because the quality of people, the pool of people that are coming to the selection boards are actually very limited.
And on the contrary, I would also like to add, that's very aptly put by yourself, that at education at the start, it does build that foundation for anybody.
For anybody.
So you have to get that right in any case, basically. So I understand that, of course, this has been a very long struggle, keeping along a lot of stakeholders, having different opinions. But when we talk about the single national curriculum, do you feel that it is in itself enough to address the social injustice in our society today?
No, actually, it cannot be. One step cannot be enough. There are multiple steps that we need to take, but the first step in the right direction takes you to the right place.
Of course.
So you cannot say that it is the complete solution, but yes, it is. Your direction is correct. It needs to be improved. It needs to be improved tremendously. But having said that, we are in the right direction, and you will see the difference in years to come.
I think the good thing, if I look at it from a layman perspective, is that at least now the curriculum, to the extent of the curriculum, whatever somebody would be studying in a private elite school would be the same that would be imparted in public school, or for that matter the madrasa. So to that extent, at least, I think it is good. But coming to you, because again we have all schools of thought on this. There are people who are defending it, there are people who are opposing it as well. Do you feel that countries, when I was preparing for the show, I came across the fact that countries like Singapore, countries like Finland, those who have actually introduced the single curriculum, they've also done it by working on their infrastructures, by working on their teacher trainings. So do you not feel that if we work on these other things, maybe the imposition of this curriculum would be more effective that way?
Exactly, very effective. I think this is the primary thing that we're lacking in this in this program, because we are not addressing the position of training the staff.
Right.
Training teachers is one of the most fundamental thing, because in our in our government schools they have huge infrastructures, and I think the policy that has been implemented now has been going on since 70s. The very idea was coined in 70s and then 80s during Bhutto's era and then Zia's era. But then again, every government had their own objectives to achieve. So here the major and the primary objective was to bring in and mainstream the seminaries, the madrasas, where their students can become employable, because our markets, when these students graduate and eventually come out into the marketplace, they are basically unemployable.
It's basically pulling that standard of education. Show, please.
If I may.
Yes.
He's right. This policy has been going around from the 1970s, from the Bhutto era. But that is exactly what is happening right now. That is the policy that we are changing that was happening from 70s. That is the difference till 70s.
But the credit must be given to their government for bringing it in at least.
This is
basically.
the 70s policy is now being changed. Till 70s, you would have people on the top notch coming to the top notch position who had education from the village schools, which you call TART schools or whatever, government schools. But and eventually, as we reached the 90s and the 2000s, the quantity of those people kept going down and down and down, and eventually
But PTI was the government basically who brought around legend. Yes, madam, I would want to have you on board.
As to what Faraz was mentioning about teachers training, that has been an ongoing process for the past 3 years.
Right.
And we have trained teachers. Now that the curriculum has come onto the ground, the teachers, a number of teachers have been, I don't know how many, I can't exactly remember the numbers, but there have been several thousand teachers who've been trained. And the thing is that our Minister for Education, Murad Ross, has been very seriously implementing it. I have been visiting schools in Lahore, not in the suburbs, but in the more rural aspects of Lahore. And I will tell you that the teachers and the quality of teachers has been amazing. I think the English curriculum and the Urdu, the fact that they are doing an Urdu curriculum has been because children do not understand what they are
But on
learning.
the contrary, there are some people who are finding it difficult as well. But of course, that doesn't ignore the
I
pros
will tell you something.
Yes.
I'm just sorry, I'm cutting it. But the thing is that with books, the English that they're going to be teaching as a language, people have been trained for that, which is an excellent thing. And you're taking it because by class 5 or 6, they're going to change you into English.
Exactly.
So that you continue.
Social sciences is also
All.
in Urdu from grade 1 to 5, and then on, I think in grade 6 it makes a switch
Yeah,
to
but
Urdu.
Understand one thing, that English medium school and English being the medium of teaching. When you think that it's difficult for people to, when we're teaching them in Urdu, you have to understand you're talking about a very small minority.
Of course, I understand
I'm
that.
talking about a child in Pakpatan in a
It's
small
pulling
village,
them up to the
or
standard of the elite
Somalia.
schools. I understand that basically.
Child thinks in Punjabi, he translates it in Urdu, and then you're teaching him in English. His maths is lost in the translation.
Although I do feel, I agree with what you're saying, but then there are some subjects, Aisha, like social sciences, like geography, and maybe some other subjects in which, you know, which are just neutral that way. Whether you teach them in English, whether you teach them in Urdu, much of a difference would not be
so
made.
that's the idea.
Yeah.
You need to learn the language.
Okay.
You need to learn English as a language.
Coming to you, madam, I understand that you're doing this amazing work on empowering the downtrodden segments of the Pakistani society, which includes transgenders, of course. So tell us about, you know, the work that you've been doing in this regard.
We're at the moment we're passing the bill, and we're working on that. The bill from the government in the federal level has been already. It's
Right.
given a preamble and it's given you a sort of a structure. But after the 18th Amendment, all provinces have their own bills to pass, and the way they, and also their transgenders behave differently. So I think that a few people, and we, the parliamentarians, have been working with people who are organizing and working and reaching out to transgenders and taking in their inputs. So there are things that, you know, there are some things that are very generic.
Right.
And in a law, I'm going to be a little off track here, but we have a law in Pakistan. Every country has a law. We are still fighting, and we are citizens, and we are equal citizens. But are we equal? We are still fighting on women's rights.
Yeah, that was the
So-
next issue that I was going to come to.
So we are
exactly.
already fighting on that. So I personally think, and I put this across, that when we are making a law now, let's not make it too generic. Let's focus a little bit about what their needs are.
The specifics.
The specifics.
Just like specifically the minister, education minister, he has launched this, he's introduced this school for transgenders in Multan.
Yes, yes.
Very
and there is
recently,
also another parliamentarian who is with us, Aisha, what's her name? Iqbal. She also takes those children and she is also teaching them. In fact, she houses them because these children are often taken away from their families. They're thrown out or they leave because they are so unhappy.
But
in
is
their-
the rehabilitation or taking care of them part of the law itself, madam?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm hoping that we can put something across. I have said it that, I mean, I'm going to talk to you, our minister for social securities, that
Right.
can we do anything? I know he is interested, but the fact is that we are getting the law organized. The law is for everybody.
I think that would
across
be the
India.
first step,
It would be
madam.
the first step.
Exactly.
So we're taking the gender of male, female, plus the fact that is an X. When you put an X, but there is a problem. The female transgender is different, and there are problems for the male transgender is completely different. So we have to take into account
So many little things.
it's such a
And you would,
open-
of course,
it's
like you earlier
so
said, you would want
downtrodden.
people who are actually working for them, because this is something so
Yes.
specific, you can't get it wrong. But I think madam rightly so mentioned women, of course. Recently, we've seen this surge of violence against women cases, so many cases happening of late. So how do you feel as a women parliamentarian? What has PTI done in its 3-year rule to empower women?
At the beginning of it, let's just understand that what is happening in our society at this time, that is in no way acceptable.
Of course.
In no way acceptable and in no way justifiable.
Right.
And at any level that we do victim blaming, that's another problem that has come about. That is why, the question of how do we prove that it was a fault of a female. One thing we have to be very clear about, it's not the fault of the female.
Of course.
Period.
Yes.
Like there is no, the conversation ends there.
Ends there, but-
PTI has done multiple things
Right.
for strengthening women, but one of the most important things that we feel, and Talat would agree to it, that there is one issue that one element that we want to make women specific laws.
We have made,
we
because
have
as a
made so
lawyer,
many,
exactly, I've
so
been doing
many,
shows on this.
so
exactly.
many.
So
But
many.
I think one of the things now that we are talking about very actively is that more than making specific laws for women, we need to see each law from a female gender lens.
Exactly, Aisha, but you would like to add something to that, madam?
Yes, I wanted to say that when we talk, there are always, I've been to several places, there are panels and discussions. We are not sensitizing society, neither is our family. There's a complete breakdown in society and in the way people are bringing up their children. People think that the teacher will do it or somebody else will do it. They're not taking onus for their own families. They do not talk to their children. I find that that is a complete, there's a complete, it's far apart. The family
There's a
and
very
the
big gap.
The big gap, it's a huge gap. They don't talk about the most essential things to their family.
Right, madam. Faraz, would you want to comment to what Ms. Talat said?
You see, first good thing about is we're having a discourse about it. Consent. Finally, we at a stage where we're talking about consent. Second, yes, we need to have a discussion about it. We should treat our kids, we should tell them what is consent, because we have not been having such discussions. Neither mothers, neither fathers.
But now we see that such discussions have started,
Yes,
honestly.
and we
have to give credit, especially to, women who've actively been propagating about this, and they have gotten, the due support from the
Yes,
state as well.
And those who have voices must feel responsible for this.
Of course.
To inform people, to educate people on how to differentiate between empowering others and how to overpower the others, and how there's a thin line between consent and overpowering others.
Then I think in this regard, the Information Minister Fawad Chaudhry Saab, the fact that he's recently announced that the government is going to form a committee in which they're going to be taking on notable individuals from different walks of life, religious scholars and people from the civil society, just to guide the government on how to combat violence. I think that in itself is also a very promising message. going from the state, because you see it's a trickle down effect, so that is something which must be appreciated.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but coming to you, I think we've talked enough about transgenders, women issues, and it's only fair that we talk about other social angles as well, social as well as economical. So tell us about the SAS program, because this I understand is one of the most popular programs of your government, which has been very focused on eradicating poverty and it's been very focused on, you know, and boosting economic growth. So what are your views on that?
SAS is our flagship
Right.
program, and we're super proud of it. The world is talking about it. It's one of the greatest poverty elevation program of all time. And it's very interesting how there's a large segment that we have managed to include. Not only that we are talking about households that are living below the poverty line and are eligible for a financial aid,
Right.
but at the same time, we have made special programs for the widows. There are things that are coming up for the transgenders.
Exactly.
And then, along
For orphans, yes. For
orphans.
differently able persons
or
as well.
differently abled.
Exactly.
So actually, we are looking at the society in terms of what are the marginalized groups and how
Right.
we can support them and how we can bring them into mainstream. Well, and the other program that I think I'm very proud of for my government is Kamyab Jawan.
Yes.
I mean, bringing people, job creation is not sarkari naukri.
Of course.
It's not government jobs. We have to understand that job creation, if there's a shop that is opening and they're employing 2 people, that's job creation. Every small business starting is job creation.
Otherwise, you're also working on the empowerment of.
Of course.
I understand that you have been working on different programs like the one that you just mentioned, the Kamyab Jawan program. But what about the vocational training of young people?
Oh, vocational training is definitely on the top of the charts. In fact, Punjab, we have this lovely person, Ali Salman, heading TEFTA in Punjab. And one of the first things that he did was we sat down, looked at the courses that were being offered at TEFTA and dropped out the redundant courses. We keep talking about Salai machine, we keep talking about fixing radios. These courses need to be dropped. What TEFTA now is doing, or the skill development sector now is doing, what are the requirements international? How do we match international standards so that we can export human resource and train our people accordingly, rather than just filling a gap of we have given skill to somebody.
So like that they are not just only equipped to go out there and work, they are in a way equipped for life. That's the way I would want to see it. Madam, would you want to add something to that?
But what I have really liked is that the Social Security Minister, Yawar Bukhari, has also taken this initiative. He has also taken this, that we should have our young people and our youth. They shouldn't only be going, as we said, international, but also for the sectors that are working in Pakistan. The industries that are in Pakistan have got unskilled labor. We need to skill those labor so that that labor force can be
utilized here in Pakistan effectively, of course, and there can be job creation.
There's a lot of job creations. In fact, we've done quite a bit in Faisalabad, because there was a shortfall of about over 1 lakh, I think almost 2 lakhs. Of people who were needed for the factories that have boomed up, and they didn't have that kind of so they looked at it from different segments of society in different parts of Punjab.
You want to add something to that,
Another
Faraz?
ambitious project, I think that is phenomenal on the scale and stage. Naya Pakistan Housing Scheme.
Right.
I think this is
coming to that too.
absolutely revolutionary, considering this has been a motto of all the previous parties in their political spectrum. But I think what PM Imran Khan did with housing specifically, it is very generous, it is phenomenal, it is unmatchable. The policy
and it is very much needed. Like basically, it's a basic necessity.
Exactly. And this is targeted towards lower income people, people who have been living for decades, for centuries.
Do women get some kind of a preference in this?
Actually,
It's human related, but I think they will have some for women who are, I think, who are widowed. Or who have small children and there are problem single women. I think there may be a provision, but I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
Where I do know is that exactly what he's saying is that it is for, and the easy loan to return it.
Exactly.
It's a good, it's got a long term benefits, it's got, you don't have to pay your rent. you pay the bank that same rent.
And I think in this
Actually,
regard, even
if I may
Right,
add,
please.
I think the common thing in all the programs, if we're talking about Kamyab Jawan, Naya
the
Housing,
Sehat Sahulat program as well,
all of these
exactly, the instant
programs, I
provision
think
of healthcare services.
I think what is most important is that this is the first time that the government has actually negotiated with the banks to make
Right.
simpler policies for people to get loans. Financial, like, I mean, it was really a big task to be even part of the banking system. So I think this is the first time the government has taken that initiative where they have negotiated with the banks to ensure the inclusion of larger segment of the society.
Especially the vulnerable segments,
Especially
Aisha.
also, see, everybody becomes vulnerable. But in our society, it's very interesting. In the banking sector, if you are an entrepreneur, you will not get a credit card. You will not get a loan. But if you are working for an organization, 20 people working for my company will get better.
They will get loan and they will very
Yes,
easily default as well,
exactly.
and then they will
So
get away with
in
the
our
default
soci-
too,
Yeah,
basically.
the banking system actually was benefiting the salaried people and not the entrepreneurs. So this
This is something which has
this
been
is something
changed.
which has happened, and this is what is going to bring the change in the society, where job creation is not out of corporate or government, but out of every street and every around every
Of
market.
course, in that way there is more equity that way,
Yes.
exactly. But about the health, I think this is a question which is generally posed to
yeah.
everybody. I think health is again something that you people have worked on very diligently. The Sehat Sahulat program, you know, the provision
Sehat
of
card.
sorry, Sehat card as well, under it, the Sehat card, and the provision of the card to transgenders,
To
you know,
everyone.
to
To
everyone basically.
every
But my
family.
heart still goes out to people, you know, who are not that
they-
much
they are the going
accepted
to
in the
be-
society as they should be,
They
of
are
course.
the ones who are going to be the
Right.
most, who will benefit first, and then everybody else will follow. But the thing is that they are, if you may know about it, but right now also, they are looking at every household. Details are being taken on. In fact, I was supposed to go there today, but I dropped it because of this, because I was going to take a round of the various areas. This is an amazing thing,
This
that
is
you
an
are
amazing program,
registering
exactly.
people by actually going into, you're not waiting for them to come, you're going out to them.
And the
So-
cover, I think that is so wide, covers
Yes.
everybody and all sorts of treatments,
That's why it's
so
very
many
important
diseases.
When you do it on merit and for all, then the people are not marginalized. And that is the most important thing, when the marginalized community is actually included in the
It's
biggest
more
segment.
inclusive. Yeah, but I was saying it from a different perspective, of course, because even in the constitution, you know, the constitution itself also very clearly says that, you know, special laws can be made for women and children where need be. So in that way, I'm saying that, you know, not that I'm saying that of course others don't have a right, but of course I get what you're saying, that it should be all inclusive, be it for a differently able person, be it for a religious minority, be it for
anyone.
women, children,
When
anybody.
minorities are not treated as minority and they're treated as all,
Of course, of
what
course.
can be better than that?
What can be better than that? But of course, when we're talking about the society, Aisha, I think it's fair that we dissect and talk
Yeah, yeah.
about everybody separately. Coming to you, Faraz, I think in that regard we must also talk about climate change and, you know, climate justice, so to speak, because that itself is also a very pressing social issue, and of course, as we all understand, a global issue too. And this government is that one government which has been very vocal about it, for which it does, you know, it should be given credit. So what do you feel that, you know, what is the way forward? Because I do feel that this government is working a lot on this issue nationally with the 10 billion tree project, and recently the smart forest has also been launched in Shekhupura, and so many other things that they are doing. But what about the, you know, international narrative? Do you not feel that we should also, you know, work with other nations on this?
I think climate is a very, it's not an inclusive thing, it's an exclusive thing. Because every country wants to have an economic progression, and economic progression comes at a cost, which is environment. We have to either fill in our coffers in the economic terms, or fill in our coffers in the terms of environment. Prime Minister Imran Khan, what he did and what he did right is that he's finally talking about climate. He is the only one, I think.
At both national and international levels,
Yes,
both,
climate
yes.
has been a problem, and it basically, we are at an existential threat. Not just Pakistan, the entire globe. The entire globe is warming
Which
up.
is why I said it's also very important for us
It
to
is
work
very
on it
important.
on an international level.
And you see Pakistan, just this year was considered as one of the hottest country across the globe. And if we are not going to work today, I don't think we have a future, and we don't have, and we're not going to you know, make space for our future generations to live in this country. So I think Prime Minister Khan initially, when he started with the Billion Tree project, it was considered as a very ambitious project. But then finally it is being implemented, and we see the results being reaped out there.
The
and
smart forest has also been inaugurated.
yes.
It's amazing how Khan Sahib has managed to have this conversation on climate and trees, specifically on trees. If I mean, you know, just the fact that on every 14th August now we talk about, rather than buying a flag, we talk about plant a tree.
Tree, exactly.
You know, it has become a household activity. Grandparents, grandchildren, they all get together, they plant trees, they plant.
I think people have understood the actually severity of the problem. Vision itself is also very important, because there are a lot of people out there, so many crimes happening all the time, so many social issues, they conveniently turn a blind eye to that. So I think that is one thing, the conversation itself that has started.
I think that one thing that Khan Sahib is amazing at, he's amazing, that he doesn't reach out to you and me. We can read, we know what's happening, we can research the data. Whom he reaches out to is the common man. When he talks, he's not talking to you and me. He is specifically talking to the common man of Pakistan, giving them the details as to what he's doing and what needs to be done. And when we're talking about climate change, he has made it a viable project for people who can earn a living through this. It has happened in the KP areas, it's happening everywhere, it's happening throughout Punjab, it's happening in Lahore. We've got a new forest coming up in Lahore.
Exactly, Mr. But coming to, I think we've spoken about so many issues: education, economy, human rights, women issues, rights of minorities, transgenders. In that regard, we must also talk about the general overall, you know, economy of the country, how stable it has been under this government, and, you know, what efforts has it made, because I think SARS has been aptly addressed by her earlier, but, you know, economy is a larger thing than that. So how do you, as somebody who is not, of course, a parliamentarian, look at this objectively?
I think in the past 3 years, Pakistan's Tehreek-e-Insaf's government has done greatly on the economic front. When PTI took power in 2018, your remittances were standing around $19 billion. Today, there are at historic $28 billion. Current account deficit has been always a problem for Pakistan, because we want more dollars to pay for the imports, and when there are more imports, we want more dollars to have, and when there are less dollars in our economy, that means the rupee will continue to depreciate. Under this government, in the past 3 years, when this government took over in 2018, the current account deficit was around $19 billion. Today, as we speak, it stands at $1.8 billion. So that's the economic figures that the government has been talking about, and it is actually a major determinant of any economic indicator. Another thing.
And of course, an indicator of the government's, you know, successful rule as well, because economy is something that you really measure, you know, it's the yardstick of measuring a country's growth. Exactly.
And that too primarily under the pressure of COVID.
I was about to come to that.
Rattled the entire economy, not just our economy, but the global economy. You see our neighbor India, you see United States, you see the entire Europe. Their economic growth have been going into negative. Pakistan's Tehreek-e-Insaf's government in 2021, we had an economic growth figure of 3%, which was surprising for a lot of stakeholders, for the world at large. But then again, this is the government's performance, economic performance. Despite, against all the odds, the government was able to achieve a 3% economic growth. And one other thing, the tax revenues. The tax collection in 2018 was around 3,800 billion rupees in 2018. Today, in just 3 years, the government has a total tax collection of 4,700 billion rupees.
I think that's very rightly put, and I think more credit, especially because of this pandemic, because the previous governments, they didn't have to face that, they were not prepared for that. So I think for people like yourself, it must have been more difficult balancing that, act of life with that of, making sure that people don't lose their livelihood. So it's human life versus livelihoods. For that, I think they should be given credit. But moving towards that, I think you've given us a good narrative on what you believe has been the economic growth in the PTI government. Foreign affairs, that is something that I would want to talk about, because a lot of people from your own party say that that has been a very big win-win of this government. Yes. How so?
One, we were not being included in a lot of things in the world. Like, I mean, when was the last time you were given the privilege to host a climate event? When was the last
World
time you were given
Day.
the privilege to open the conversation in UN?
Right.
So why are you being given this opportunity if your foreign office is not working well, if the Prime Minister is not playing the game right? It is finally we are becoming relevant, and not just because of our geostrategic location, but also because of the conversations that we are having and how
the way we are having it,
and the way we are
on
having
the basis
it,
of mutual
and the part
respect
that
and
we are
trust.
playing. Yes, the part we are playing. So it has gone beyond geostrategic location only, and we have become relevant on the map in general.
Exactly, and I think in this regard, even the fact that the Kashmir issue, if you see
I mean,
that,
who
that
has
was at the
brought
back
up-
burner and it is now at the forefront, at least to the extent of starting that conversation.
Both of
at
them,
least.
both Afghan issue
Afghan
as well
issue,
as
exactly.
the Kashmir issue. And our Prime Minister has been amazing on both these because they affect Pakistan very directly. The other thing that I feel that is very, it's opening up is our relationships with all the other countries
Exactly.
in the region. Khan Sahib is a pacifist. He's like us. We don't want war. We are Pakistanis. We're Sufi. We like a country which will progress. All of us want to grow, and we want our country. We're proud Pakistanis. I think one of the things that he has taught everybody is that you can be very proud of your Prime Minister and your country.
I think this discussion would be incomplete if we don't talk about media and how media has changed, how it has evolved in this PTI's 3-year rule. So in that regard, what would you want to say? Because I do understand that you have also been very actively involved in the media before.
So I think that media in the last tenure of PMLN, media got used to a different kind of numbers, different kind of way the government was playing. And we were very clear, even when we were not in government, that this is not how we are going to do it. This is now how we are going to project ourselves. This is not the kind of money the government is going to throw. So there was that clear message that we had, even when we were not in government. I think media was caught by surprise when we came in government and we stood by it. It came as a surprise to a lot of media people, and it started coming across as we're trying to cut down the media. We're not trying to cut down media. What we are doing is just not doing those huge campaigns that the last government
And also
was.
I think one positive change, the stress on content now, on quality programming, that in itself is very good, and PTV News has just gone HD. So I think generally, even if you judge it by the state channel's perspective too, I think PTI has come a long way, and of course in a positive way, I'm saying that. I think you would also want to add something to this, because there is this proposal to form this regulatory authority which would basically regulate all media, whether it be print media, whether it be electronic media, for that matter, social media. So as a journalist, how do you see that?
I think there's only one good thing about it because there are a lot of other organizations, a lot of unions, a lot of regulatory authorities which are under different sub-authorities. One thing good about this PMDA is that they're going to
Pakistan Media Development Authority.
Exactly, PMDA. That they're going to bring all these unions, all these organizations under one umbrella. But not each organization is happy about it. You can't find an independent journalist who's happy about it, because it is all about regulating.
Why so? Would it not give it more? I think if things are under one authority, everything is codified, everything is unified, wouldn't it be easier that way? Or you feel that, the nature of every media is so distinct, so different, that it can't possibly be done?
But the idea
like,
is,
what are your reservations on it as a journalist?
again, censorship, over-regulation. Who is going to decide what kind of content is going to be produced? For instance, the government under this PMDA, one clause is that you are going to be fined 25 million rupees, and only Supreme Court is going to, apart from this media authorities tribunals, only Supreme Court could hear the cases.
But if I look at it from another perspective, basically, maybe, you know, the deterioration into society, maybe that's too much exposure, like they say that too much of anything can be detrimental for you. So I'm not saying take away the liberty, the media freedom, so to speak, because we do see the government supporting that. We have had the journalist bill being approved that way, but at least regulate it in a decent manner.
So if I may just add a personal opinion to it. See, what you're saying is what kind of content we can manage the content on the electronic media. We can manage what we print, and maybe to a certain extent. But
it'll just be easier, Aisha, don't you think so?
But as far as digital is concerned, I'm so sorry. Like, I mean, how are you going to?
But for that, we already have the laws in place. We have the 2016 law as it is. So that law,
the cybercrime law,
yes, the prevention of electronic
that's exactly
crimes
the problem. In a cybercrime law, you've made it an FIA issue, and it's suddenly criminal law, criminal. It is not about regularizing and teaching, or actually teaching our people how to use this medium effectively, which is in a positive way. We've just made it criminal. So you have to understand that the way to manage it is not, we can't do anything about the negative media. What we can do is increase the content of the positive side. It is always the ratio of the content.
And of course discourage negative content, be it hate speech or anything for that matter.
See, that's what happens when there's more positive content, the negative content starts losing.
I think we need to have more debate on this before we are able to make up this minds on this. Madam, you wanted to add something to this.
I just say that media has changed. Since I was a journalist, media has changed tremendously. What I'm seeing is that it is digitalized now. You can't get away from it.
Of course.
And what Aisha was saying is completely right. But we have also seen, as she started, that the way the previous governments were handling media and the way, we all know what it was like. It has taken down the quality of journalism. As a journalist, I will say this on air, that the quality of journalism has deteriorated. And young people who have much more greater aspirations, they're coming in, they feel it too. They're using they're using your digital, what do you call it, mediums to use and to get and project.
The landscape of the media is completely changed. But that is completely devoid that way, basically what we are saying. Whether the argument is whether or not we should have one regulatory authority for these three distinct kinds of media.
I was coming to that. With all that is going on, things, you cannot sustain anything keeping the old order.
Right.
The new order has to come into place. There will be many things that mean, I mean, we're talking about it today, but even this will have to have give and take.
Of course.
There will be changes. The law will protect, the law will, you can't work, and it's new to both of us. It's new to the government, it's new to the law, or to the justice system. It's new also to the journalists and professionals.
One more thing that I feel that the reason media section is apprehensive about it is because they're owners of the media. Then there are editors, then there are working journalists, then there are different segments within the media. And everyone is impacted very differently. Like, I mean, if you say PFUJ, how the people a part of PFUJ are going to be affected, how the people of Press Club are going to be affected, how CPNE is going to be affected, or how APNSC is going to be affected. So, how PEMRA is going to be affected, and all that kind of thing. So, actually, I think the reason I feel that the media segment is a little reluctant is because we haven't done the consultative process to the extent that it should have been done. It will take time, and we should make sure that everybody is on board through the consultative process.
And of course, we should also make sure, like you rightly pointed out, media freedom should not be compromised in that, of course, because that is your inherent constitutional right.
You know,
but of course, subject to reasonable restrictions as I speak.
But also, this is, by the way, this is similar. When the cyber law came in, it was the ministry that did it. The stakeholders were not included in the consultative process. That's why it became a criminal law. You know,
coming towards the conclusion of the show, you know, and considering that we're wrapping up the whole discussion, what would your message be regarding this whole discussion that we have had, regarding the social impact that your party has had on the lives of course, the people that it is ruling? What is the message that you would want to give to the viewers?
I don't know if it's a message. I can just say that I'm super proud. I was at an event 2 days ago where Khansa was giving us, telling us the work that we've done, and it felt so good to be a part of it and to be there as a result, to see the result that was coming out of the fruit that we're going to bear. And you know, the best part was that Imran Khan, the Prime Minister, was not giving opinions of what will make us win in the next election. It was about what the next generation needs and the steps that we need to take. And I felt super proud of it.
And one thing I really like personally about the Prime Minister is that he's very interactive. The fact that he keeps on coming on TV and, you know, taking everybody in confidence, that is something that is unmatched. But coming to you, you know, 3 years have gone, 2 years to go. What would your proposals be? What are the areas that you objectively see is it that the government needs to work on?
I think there's only one thing. In 2018, PTI promised change, and not incremental change, but a revolutionary change. And PTI should really focus on bringing in the revolution, bringing in the change. They promised us 6% economic growth just yesterday, the finance minister. I think they should continue working on this space, but the idea is we need to understand, and even PTI need to understand and realize what has changed. Has Pakistan changed or PTI changed? The philosophy must never change. It should never be about survival that we see today. It should always about the change that they promise.
Right, and that is true, I think, for any political party or for any leader. Madam, coming to you, what are the plans in the pipeline? Because I know you are doing amazing social work, empowering, you know, especially the marginalized communities of the Pakistani society. What more can we expect from the party?
My Prime Minister works with one and only one direction. He wants the best for Pakistan. And all the programs that you have seen so far have all been focused on uplifting the common man. So for him, if you see the Panagas, if you see all the programs, it is focused on the common man. Yes, we have problems. No one's denying that. But we have taken initiatives in the agricultural sector, which we haven't discussed today. But that is also an initiative that will have impact in the coming years. These projects that Imran Khan has taken, the Prime Minister has focused on, are not that of a politician, as Aisha said, that's looking for the next election. He is taking this world forward, he is taking this country forward as a statesman for the next and future generations. And at every level you will see that, whether it's the canals that are being built, whether it's the dams that he is focusing on, whatever
it's
you
nation
look,
building to
it
basically
is
sum it
building
up at the end of
a
the day.
nation and from the grassroots. It is not from the top, it is from the grassroots. What I like about it is that he is taking the industrialists on board. They are investing in Pakistan. The trickle-down effect hasn't quite hit the mark that I would like, but yes, it will happen because it is inevitable.
It has started, and the right message is getting across. On that note, I would like to conclude today's show. Thank you so much, Aisha. Thank you so much, Faraz. Thank you so much, Ms. Tallat, for being here with us today. Well, to conclude today's show, there is no denying to the fact that the PTI-led government has been very focused on empowering the common man, be it in terms of their social initiatives, be it in terms of their economic initiatives. Let's just hope that this momentum of empowering and being so focused on the common man continues to stay for the remaining of its 2-year tenure. On that note, signing off for today. Until next time, take care and Allah Hafiz.